Primary producers. Seagrass. Seagrass is an autotrophic plant that grows entirely underwater. Light is required for these plants to make food through photosynthesis. It uses the sun's energy to form organic materials. Seagrass utilizes and recycles its nutrients both in the water and in the sediments. Seagrass is the only flowering plant that grows in marine environments. There are about 60 different species of seagrass in the ocean. Seagrass has been known to grow in oceans for up to 100 million years. Seagrass is usually found along the coast in clear, shallow marine waters such as bays and lagoons. You can also find seagrass in the intertidal zone due to the sea retreating at low tide and exposing the seabed. Primary consumer. Clownfish. Clownfish are omnivores. They consume food of both plant and animal origin. There are 30 different species of clownfish, and they range in colors such as orange, yellow, black, and red. Clownfish are hermaphrodites, meaning they are born male but can turn themselves female. Once changed, they cannot reverse the change. They will usually do this when the dominant female of the group dies. Clownfish can live up to 10 years. Clownfish are very aggressive fish with all the predators in the coral reef. It's a relentless fight to survive. Clownfish go blind at night and regain sight in the day. They live in anemone that is found in reefs and lagoons. They live in warm water, usually on the continental shelf, and during the winters they will migrate to warmer waters. Intermediate consumer. Stingray. Stingrays are heterotrophic, lack cell walls, and they are motile at some stage of their life. They are carnivores, meaning they eat meat such as small fish and other sea creatures they catch at the bottom of the sea. They live in the sunlight zone of the sea, buried in the sand and only moving with the sway of the ocean's current. Stingrays are also related to sharks. There is over 80 species of stingrays in the world. They use smell and electropaths to find prey. They have a venomous spine tail that is fatal, and they use their tail for defense and to maneuver through the water. They use camouflage to protect themselves from predators. Stingrays can live up to 20 years and can swim up to 30 miles per hour. They have roamed the ocean for over 100 million years. Top predator. Sharks. Sharks are carnivores, eating animals such as whales, sea lions, and seals. Sharks live all over in the ocean, from reefs to the deepest part of the sea. There is over 500 species of sharks, and they have been in the ocean for over 400 million years. Different species of sharks have different ways of catching prey. The basking shark will open its mouth like a basket and just inhale, as the great white shark uses speed and colors to catch prey. Most sharks feed off the top of the ocean, but there are some who feed on the bottom and live in or around coral reefs. In water as deep as 200 feet, these are called zebra sharks. Then there is the goblin shark, who spends most of its time in the dark in depths at almost 5,000 feet. Sharks are apex predators and are at the top of the food chain. They play a very important role in the ecosystem by maintaining the species below them, and they are an indicator to ocean health. Decomposers. Crabs are omnivores, feeding on algae, bacteria, and fungi. Crabs live in the intertidal zone, but some can be found in the subtidal zones. They live in or around coral reefs. They will use other organisms' shells to hide from prey, and the coral reefs is filled with food for them to survive off. Crabs are a large food source for animals like whales, seals, and penguins. They also help sequester carbon from the atmosphere, which can mitigate the effects of climate change. They are considered decomposers because they can recycle nutrients back into the ocean for other fish and organisms. There is over 4,500 species of crabs worldwide. Crabs help to purify ocean and mudflats. Food web. The food web in the coral reef is one of the most diverse ecosystems in the world. The food web is all about balance. If one link is compromised or one grows too dominant, it sends shock waves throughout the entire web. Each link of the web impacts the rest of the web. We as humans affect the food web in many ways. So we start with producers like the seagrass. It makes its own food using photosynthesis. Producers play a vital role to an ecosystem because they make food for other organisms. Then we have our primary consumers, like the clownfish, which is a herbivore and eats the producer, the seagrass. They help transfer energy throughout an ecosystem. Without them, an ecosystem can collapse. Moving on to our intermediate consumers, like the stingray. It eats primary consumers, making them carnivores. They are important because they control the population of primary consumers by eating them for energy. And the top predators, like sharks, eat both the primary and secondary consumers. They are important to an ecosystem. Without these predators, ecosystems can become unstable. Last, the decomposers, like crabs, break down dead plants, animals, and recycle the nutrients for other animals. They help the ecosystem by creating healthy soil for plant growth and keeping the ocean clean. All these organisms play an extremely important role in the ecosystem and keep it naturally balanced. And they are all very much needed to keep the food web healthy and thriving. All animals are consumers, including humans, because they cannot make their own food. All living things are connected in the food web in one way or another. Effects on the ecosystem. There are many things that what impacts the coral reef. There are many things that impact the coral reef, such as pollution, overfishing, blast fishing known as dynamite fishing, the digging of canals or bays, and climate change are just a few we can name. Many people rely on reefs for food and money. Small islands are said to be affected the most by dying of these coral reefs. A major factor to the destruction of coral reefs is climate change. As the water warms, it starts killing off coral and what is known as bleaching. Bleached corals can no longer gain energy from photosynthesis. And as bleaching persists, corals will starve and die. Many animals depend on coral reefs to survive. So we can say the dying of coral reefs can have devastating consequences to the ecosystem, which then could have dire consequences to the ocean, and so on. Like a food web, the impacts are sort of the same. It's a cycle. One relies on the other. Pollution is another thing that impacts the coral reef at great depths. This could include lowering water quality, smothering the reefs, and speed growth of damaging algae. It also makes corals more susceptible to disease, compromises their growth and their reproduction. It causes damages in the food structures on the reef. Humans play a major role in the destruction and the rebuilding of coral reefs. If we all do our part, we can help coral reefs thrive. Coral reefs are not just needed for marine animals and the ecosystem. Coral reefs are one of the most beautiful places on Earth, with the vibrant colors and the diversity of the organisms that live there. I think most, if not all of us, have seen the movie Nemo and how beautiful and majestic it is under the sea. The way all the different species live together and rely on each other for food, for protection. I think one of our biggest problems is we do not see the impacts we have on coral reefs. So we do not make it a priority to help fix it, the damage that occurs every day to this habitat and the animals that live there. Little trivia. Did you know that coral reefs cover only 1% of the ocean floor? Coral reefs have been around for 400 million years. The Mediterranean used to house the largest number of corals, but none are left today. 19% of the world's reefs have been lost, and 15% are said to be threatened in the next 10 to 20 years. Corals have 1,500 species, and many are endangered or critically endangered on the IUCN Red List. The Great Barrier Reef is the largest in the world. It began growing 20,000 years ago and can be seen from space. We can help these reefs by reducing pollution, disposing of trash properly, spreading the word, and help combat climate change. They expect coral reefs to die off in the next 100 years. This could be bad for the environment, marine life, and us as humans. Jobs would be lost from tourists would drop, money from tourists would drop, and the ecosystem would be compromised. So if you can, get out there and do what you can do to help keep these reefs alive, thriving, and surviving. This concludes my presentation. Thank you for watching. I had a great semester and learned many new things. I enjoyed all of you and watching your videos. I wish you all the best on your endeavors.